Hey everybody, this is Alexander Fitzgerald, or Assassinato, back for another portion of my CardRunners video on HUDs, using HUDs, specifically the HUD that I have constructed. I wasted as much time as I wanted to, actually a little more than I meant to, in the first video with the introductions, so I'm trying not to do as much of that here and just get right into the content. We're going to talk about specific statistics that you can combine on a HUD that are available on all statistic tracking programs that I know of. Anyway, getting into, we were on this pop-up and talking about, we ended with river aggression frequency. Raise flop c-bet in position is a lot like check raise. You have to ask yourself, like, what percentage would a normal person be raising here? If somebody's just raising sets and they're nut flush draws and hands of equal strength, they would be raising about 10% of the time. And sorry to be tripping up a bit at the beginning here, guys, but had somebody's garage door open outside and leave a wonderful noise for that I had to get away from the video, but thankfully I think I did. And if they're raising like 20% of the time, that's a little too much. You don't hit a hand good enough to raise, blow up the size of the pot one time out of 5. So if you see something higher than 20, 30%, you should be really suspicious. And if you want to watch the last video, there's a real serious discussion about what boards a lot of people like to go up on. A lot of people really like to flop check raise, but not like raise in position. And a lot of people like to raise in position, but not necessarily check raise. So it's really good you have both of them. And it's really good you have both of them, and you can see what the person specifically likes. I find if what people like one, they tend to like the other as well. But it is interesting to note. Donk flop is really interesting because donk betting is becoming much more prevalent. I think I wrote a pretty good article on donk betting a few years ago. It's called Dissecting the Donk Bet. You can check it out at WPTmag.com if you want a little more. And that's kind of why I like the articles and referencing the articles. There's a lot of stuff I can only reference for a few seconds within the context of the video, but I would like you to do further study because it really helps contextualize everything. It really helps you see everything that's going on. So if you want to know specifically why some people donk flops with less than premium hands, I'd really recommend that article. But for the purposes of this video, I'd really like to let you know how to identify an honest donk bet and a dishonest donk bet. Now, the way to identify an honest donk bet actually has nothing to do with the donk flop statistics. It's really nice to see somebody's donk flop statistic, because let's say somebody has a donk flop statistic of 70%. This is typically a very novice player because most people do not donk 70% of the hands. Furthermore, you know most of the time they're bluffing because you only hit the board about 30% of the time. So rationally, 30 out of 3/7 of that time, maximum they can be hitting, which means 4/7 of the time they're missing. And you can see that most of the more than half of the time they're bluffing. However, the way to identify an honest donk bet is to look at the person's fold to continuation bet statistic. If somebody has a fold to continuation bet statistic of 60 to 65%, let's say around those parts, do you think their donk bet is honest or dishonest? And every time I ask you a question, you should pause the video and actually answer out loud. I brought this up briefly in the last video. I'm going to bring it up again. Researchers have found out that when somebody is teaching you, if you just listen, you remember about 20% of it. If the person is asking you questions throughout the lesson, you remember about 40-50% of it. If you take notes and you're answering questions and discussing with other people, you retain about 70-80%. I forget the exact percentages. I remember the range. But the way to get to 100% is to teach it to somebody else, or to at least have to explain it to somebody else. So when I do ask you a question, you should pause and answer for yourself. It will help you remember more.